All right, so my name is Gene. I don't necessarily want you to take notes. You can email me and I can send this presentation to you. I worked very hard to make it as easy to understand as possible. So I read On Becoming a Leader. It's a little bit different from the books that we heard today in the sense that it talks about how you get there. So we were talking about positions of leadership and how to motivate people or how to successfully be a CEO, but nobody talked about how you get there. And Warren Bennis does it in a way that makes sense to you when you were 10. So throughout this presentation, if nothing makes sense, revert to a time when you were 10 and you were organizing your own birthday party. You had a clear common goal, you knew the players, and you managed it well. We all had the same goal in mind. Let's have as much fun before our parents pick us up. And that was easy. But in today's world, it gets a lot harder, but those principles still stay the same. So this is Warren Bennis. He was born in 1925. He's a little bit old, but still alive. President of University of Cincinnati, an MBA from here, USC. Consultant at Warren Earhart and Associates. Chairman at Harvard University Kennedy School of Government Center of Public Leadership. And he wrote this book during, he had these occupations, these two. And I think he had all four of them. So he drew a lot of his experiences from consulting and from the leaders that he worked for. Do we need leaders? I'll give you two examples on why we do. Imagine an island. One person on an island can live alone without leadership. Two people on an island, if they're compatible, they could probably get along and thrive without leadership. Three or more, you need somebody to take charge. A hiking example. 4 people cannot hike from X to Y unless one of them knows where Y is. And everything in purple, I forgot to mention earlier, is in the words of Warren Bennis. So purple is his color. Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. The premise of the book. Leaders are self-taught. Leaders are made rather than born. It's not something that we're born with. There is no such thing as a leadership chromosome. We're all leaders in a certain sense, in a certain degree, in a certain environment. The ones that are quote-unquote bad leaders, they're just in the wrong place, at the wrong time. They're not in line with their values and other things that I want to talk about. The second one, this is important. The organization serves as a mentor to all the employees and all the managers, and its reason for being must be clear. Like the first presentation you heard. We're not making batteries. We're making sure that people know what time it is at all times. And then now, this is my favorite, because of all the literature that I've read in my entire life, nobody has addressed or asked the right questions of why America is having such an identity crisis, as Warren Bennis says. We don't have a direction that we're going to. In the past, it was, we're going to make steel. After World War II, everybody was bombed. Nobody had factories. We'll make steel. We'll make concrete. It was clear. Today, are we still innovators? We lost Steve Jobs. You know, are we still, what are we going to define ourselves as in the global environment? So if you have a broad education, which an MBA is, boundless curiosity, boundless enthusiasm, contagious optimism, belief in people and teamwork, and willingness to take risks, now is the time and now is the place to try these leadership principles that I'm going to go over. So we're blessed. We live in a very opportunistic time. Themes. Take advantage of every opportunity. Aggressively search for meaning. If somebody never wears a tie, but for some reason when you come into the office they wear a pink tie, search for meaning. It means something. Everything has a meaning. Know yourself, and this is one of the 3 big ideas. Learning from failure is the ultimate theme of the book. All of life's experiences will play a role in your effectiveness as a leader. That's a gift to you. You are your best teacher. Mentors do help, and a lot of great leaders have had mentors and become mentors, but ultimately you are your best teacher. So Warren Bennis gives us a sad story. This story doesn't have a happy ending. It's a story about Ed and how he failed as a leader, and then we'll understand why. So during college, Ed went to work for a factory. He wanted to prove to his parents that he could make the money, that he doesn't need to take the debts. And he worked really hard. He knew everything about what he did. He moved up to the VP position when he graduated. He set a mark. I'm going to prove myself. I'll become VP, and he did it. And then he got a job in the Midwest, for a higher paying job, obviously. And then he applied for the CEO position. And he was actually really used to it, like, hey, this is just another benchmark for me, and I'm going to hit it just like I've hit every other benchmark. The board of directors at his new job said he lacked the people skills to get the CEO position. He wasn't good enough to become that leader of that firm. Was this the real problem? So he hired Warren Bennis as a consultant to help him get the job, to prove himself. In the end, it turns out Ed didn't know what the company should do or why. He can answer how and when things need to get done. He was excellent at that. He was great at everything he did. I know how to do it. I know what needs to get done. But the guiding vision, how are we going to get the company from X to Y? He doesn't know where Y is. Left, right, he has no idea about that. That's why Warren Bennis didn't recommend him. He didn't get the job, and he actually quit. He surrendered to his contacts. Now, Warren Bennis goes on to give us an example about a guy named Norman Lear, but he's not nearly as interesting as Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. Same way Ed kind of left his job. The visions weren't aligned. Instead of giving up and just drinking himself to death, he took his visions of typography and the calligraphy that he knew, and he started a company, Pixar, which was way more aligned with his priorities at the time and his values. And then years later, Pixar and Apple merged, and the synergies between the two created enormous profits and innovation and all sorts of things. So the difference between Ed and Jobs is Ed failed with his context, and Steve Jobs mastered it. He was able to reinvent himself. He learned from his failure. The three big ideas about leadership, and these will come. You'll remember these. Knowing yourself, you must be able to answer. What do I want? What do I need? What can I do? Mastering the context, understanding the basics, changing the context, guiding the players, and forging the future. And then finally, deploying yourself, moving through chaos, getting people on your side, that organizations can help or hinder. So I'm going to go over these. Number one, knowing yourself. Becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. It is precisely that simple, and it is also that difficult. That's very true. So how do we get to know ourselves? The most effective thing that he found across all the CEOs he worked with was a successful long-term marriage. For some reason, that relationship of 10, 20 years of being able to really talk to a person, come to your wife and be like, honey, tell me what is wrong with my company, why isn't this working? And for them to be blunt and tell you straightforward what is wrong is extremely valuable. If you're not married like me, you can try these things. Meditation. You can try reflecting after acting. So you act and then go home and reflect. Now I'm not saying you have to meditate in the park. This is something that I do in the shower every day. And what do I do when I meditate? I ask myself, what am I going to do today? Okay? And what do I want from that? So you have to go that extra step. And to understand what I want from that, you have to have clear values and priorities. They have to make sense to you. They have to flow into the world, and it has to be very clear to everybody in this room what my values and priorities are. So in order to get to yourself, before you project yourself, you have to understand yourself. Writing about yourself through journals, blogs, and Facebook is increasingly popular and effective. I recommend you guys start a blog under a fake alias, make a new name, create a new person, create a new identity in this world, and you can write about your values and your priorities and kind of get test feedback. It's not real, nobody's going to notice it. It's not going to affect your social life, but it's an effective way to express your ideas and kind of really understand how you will react in different situations. Because the values and priorities will stay the same, you should make similar decisions in different contexts. I just covered that one. Be honest in stating what you want and what you need. So when you come up to the organization, you say, hey, I want to take this company from X to Y. I want to reduce costs in the next couple of years. Very clear. It should make sense to everybody. Now, desire or passion cannot be taught. It just can't. But it can be activated by studying yourself. So these are some of the things that I found effective in my life. It can be anything from drawing, writing poetry, talking on the phone, watching soap operas, whatever it is. Whenever you're reflecting, you're doing it right. So that's all it is. You can reflect on your drive home, putting on some music, and reflect about what happened at work. That's enough for me, and that's knowing yourself. Now, mastering yourself. So now we're doing exercises about getting to know ourselves. How do we master ourselves? Train your sense of intuition and become comfortable with uncertainty. Trusting your inner voice is important. So you guys are all crazy. You have an inner voice, and that's good. With practice, you will learn how to operate on instinct, that little 10-year-old boy or girl inside. Express yourself and don't prove yourself. This will make perfect sense as I go on. Know what you want, your abilities and capacities. So what can I do, what can I not do? So you're going to need help along the way, so you better be sure on what you can and can't do. Know what drives you, and that means what gives you satisfaction. So like me, I'm a guy about thrills. I like speed, I like skiing, skydiving, like things with like danger and risk, that drives me. Know what your values and priorities are. Know and be comfortable with saying no on certain things. Know where your line is, and if somebody crosses it, that's not okay. Those need to be clear and consistent. If they're not clear and consistent, your organization will pick that up and you will fall and fail as a leader. Now, you have to know, once you get to know your values and priorities, we're going to move into the next big point, context. You're going to measure the organization's values and priorities. Now, these should be as similar as possible. If they're not, you can be in sync with yourself and not with the organization, which was the story of Ed. And Steve Jobs, but then he became in sync with the organization later after he reinvented himself. Understanding the context. So this is my favorite part of Warren Bennis. He kind of shaped what's going on today, and he kind of allowed me to maybe get a glimpse of the future and what kind of leaders we're going to have. So we have a large aging population, and it's changing the economy and culture of this country. Latinos also have an increasingly powerful voice, and they play a role in voting. Globalization. The internet integrated everything. People are plugged into work 24/7. We have competition from emerging markets, cultural differences, interracial marriage, and reproduction. At the workplace, nobody wants to be left out or singled out. And then opportunity equals employment. That's your tool. Self, are your values and priorities consistent across different contextual settings? So changing the context. So once we've made observations, how are we going to change the context to fit my leadership goal? Use your past experiences to provide wisdom in the new context. Use observations in your voice to gather data about the new context. Once you can measure the differences between desire, capacity, drive, satisfaction, values, and priorities, you're going to have to ask yourself, do you have what it takes to close the gap and develop yourself to match the company's values and priorities? And if that doesn't work, do you have what it takes to close the gap and change yourself? So first, can you change the company to match yours? And then second, can you change yourself to match the company's values and priorities? That's how you change the context. Deploying yourself. Strike hard and try everything. Gather as much information as possible. Today's gossip is tomorrow's insight. Communicate a consistent direction or common goal. Get people on your side. Forge the future. Take charge of where the company is going and be prepared for storms and unpredictable weather. If you don't make mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. So that's deploying yourself. And getting people on your side. I think it's not as hard as people perceive it to be. Avoid creating competition within the team. Kind of what our professor did here with self-peer evaluations. Warren Bennis would disagree with that. He would say that we're going to miss overlapping creativity because of the competition among ourselves. Show vulnerability and making errors, but never stop learning. That's what people look for in a leader. Somebody who's okay to make the errors, but he can learn through them. That's what they look for in leaders. Managers don't want to learn, necessarily. By teaching someone wisdom from your personal experience, you actually get them on your side. So if somebody's having a hard time, they might not like you, you share a story about, hey, this is my past experience, it's applicable in today's world, this is what I learned from it, what can you learn from it? If you learn something from your story, he's guaranteed to be more likely on your side rather than not. Be ethical, don't manipulate people for personal gains. I had to throw that in there. Phrase movements in an inspirational way. Individual goals play a role in your context. And individual egos play a role in your context. So inspire first, then persuade. I'm going to go over the 15-minute mark, but I please don't grade me on it. I think this is very valuable stuff. All right. So adopt 4 principles.
We give you 100 marks for your honesty.
Thank you. So you adopt 4 principles to get people on your side. Be consistent. Don't create surprises. Stay the course. We're going here. No surprises. Congruity. Leaders walk their talk. So practice what you preach. Reliability. Be there when it counts in the moments that they count. So if somebody calls you at 12 o'clock at night and gives you a piece of information, you better act and make a change, make a movement, make a phone call, make a change. So that when you show up to work the next day, your employees can't say, oh, he didn't do anything, he's a bad leader. Doing something is better than doing nothing. So, past leaders. Anybody know who the first guy is? Now that I've went over the 3 big ideas, we're going to apply them to understand the world and then forge the future. Anybody know the first guy? Roosevelt. What did he do?
Led the World War II.
Right. But how did he lead the people? This is what I'm looking for. He challenged our nation to rise above fear. Einstein. He gave us a sense of unity and infinity of cosmic harmony. To Einstein, mastering context was all the math and physics and teachers telling him he was a bad student. He mastered his context, but that was how he led humanity. He said, hey, we're all connected, theory of relativity. JFK motivated us to go to the moon. The context was the Cold War. It was building weapons, and he gave America a vision, a reason to build missiles and rockets. Hey, let's go to the moon. And then Gandhi, I love this quote. We must be the change we want to see in the world. And I didn't have one sentence to sum up all the things he did. So like I said, today is the day to be a leader. Today we have a thin bench for leadership. People who cannot invent and reinvent themselves must be content with borrowed postures, secondhand ideas, fitting in instead of standing out. This basically means people who try to prove themselves instead of express themselves fail. So these are my examples of people who try to prove themselves instead of express themselves. We all know who this is. Now this is his friend Ken Lay. He did mark-to-mark accounting in Enron. And this is his friend Jeff Skilling, who was all about greed. And he was saying that, hey, I can always make more money next month. All 3 of them trying to prove them something, and all 3 of them were friends. 10 characteristics of leaders who master context. They manage the dream, they embrace error, they encourage reflective backtalk. This one's important. They rely on relationships to keep them from getting in trouble. Good leaders have friends who say, no, Zach, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. I'll tell you why. Just hold on. Just don't do that. They have a Nobel factor, which is optimism, faith, and hope. They have the Pygmalion effect, increasing expectations. When you increase the expectations, performance goes up. They have the Gretzky factor, which is Gretzky was good because he didn't know where the puck was at all times, but he had a sense of where the puck is going to be. So that's the Gretzky effect. You have a sense of where it's going to be. See the long view, have patience, understand stakeholder symmetry, creating strategic alliances and partnerships. Managers versus leaders. Managers accept the status quo, leaders challenge it. I'm gonna skip to this for the sake of time. This is what managers need from their leaders: direction, trust, and hope. You can answer all of these questions on top. So what does a leader do? By challenging the status quo, he gives you direction. And how does the manager listen? Through trust and hope. So you can apply this to all of it. And then the last and final, managers are interchangeable. Leaders are an original. So they're not interchangeable. About Warren Bennis's ideas. I liked it because it's very simple to understand. I felt like, hey, this is very applicable, and it's applicable in all walks of life, whether it's school, relationships, or other activities. It kind of shaped my senses to view life as a game, and that leads me to my dislike. I'll start at the bottom. Life is not a game. So I felt this, if somebody could read it and kind of go off the cliff if they adopted his ideas in the wrong way, or didn't master the context and they adopted the other ideas, you can really ruin your life if you don't master the context first. Barriers to exit. Once you start a leadership project, it's really hard to get off, and it's really bad. It all falls apart. This is like a marriage. When you're leading a task, it is like a marriage. You're in it until the end. Once the curtain goes up, you go for the roadshow. It doesn't matter if you're prepared or not. Caution, there is no set formula. You must be your own inventor. And then my recommendation. Draw forth vision from chaos so that your ideas can take root. Think strategically and invest in the future, but keep the numbers up. Be entrepreneurial and take risks when the team is performing. Continuously improve everything you are currently doing. Spend time communicating with employees. Know everything about the business, but delegate more responsibility to others. I mean, this sounds too idealistic, so I'm going to give you a gift, one of 2 tonight. Everywhere you trip is where the treasure lies. So if you're going to remember anything, just remember these 2 gifts. Try everything. Where you make mistakes, that's where you will find opportunity and treasure as a leader. Become passionately dedicated to your visions. Once you have that vision, hold on to it like it means your life. Frantically carry them out. If you want a balloon, don't just ask for it. Scream for it. I want a balloon! People need to like get on your side, right? Oh, this guy really needs a balloon. I should probably take him serious. Be responsive and ready to take to change direction quickly. Yeah, that's important. Leaders are ultimately the people that make the final decision and that make the decisions when there's no time. So when you got to make a decision on the spot, it always goes to the leader. So you better be prepared. And that's where operating from instinct comes in. When I talked about knowing your inner voice and training it to be right, that's where that comes in. Speak up, be a leader. Set the direction, but be a participant. Listen well and cooperate. The human element does destroy corporations, but it's also your greatest strength. If you're able to listen and build long-lasting relationships in the teams you will work for, you will find those teams to be outperforming. Never stop learning, succeed, succeed. And then Warren Bennis ends his book with this quote, and I'm going to conclude my presentation with the same quote. It's easier to express yourself rather than to disguise yourself. It is also much more rewarding. I'll open it up to Q&A.
So I'm curious as to when this book was published. More so, I want to know, you have a lot of examples like blogging and George W. and so on. If it was referenced in the book or if those are your own bold ideas. And
I got the W. Bush from him. He actually said that W is responsible for both of our meltdowns, and all he did was try to prove that he can be better or the same as his dad, and he had no overarching leadership. When was the book written?
Just the blog, because it seems way too
2005.
current for an 85-year-old.
This one has been this one talks even about Obama. It's revised.
Oh, okay.
So this is very current. Great.
Grandmother will be proud.
Thanks.